All right, Module 10. Module 10 is about geometry. And by that, what I mean is it's about the area and then the volume. And they're pretty easy. They pretty much involve knowing which formulas to use for both area and the volume. And if you look at your notes on page 3, I gave you all the formulas you need to do any kind of volume or areas. So for this module, I'm going to give you a few examples and show you how to use those formulas. You just use the same technique to do any other formulas you see. So let's start with the circle. So this is a circle. The center, it's either the origin or the center. The most important part of the circle is this part right here, from the center to the outer edge. It's called a radius. And if you extend it all the way through, that's a diameter. Okay. If you don't go through the middle, it's called a chord. The perimeter around the circle, the whole thing around, it's called a circumference. The circumference is all the way around. If it's just a part of it, it's called the arc. So the most important thing is the radius, that's from the center to the outer edge. Circumference, diameter, center. And if it's a half a circle, say this bottom half, it's called a semicircle. So that's a terminology. For a circle, I mentioned a circle because there's a special letter, pi. Looks like this. And it's sometimes you substitute 3.14 for the pi. So depending on the problem, you either use a pi or use 3.14. So what is pi? Well, pi is defined to be c, which is the circumference, and diameter d. For the circle, my recommendation is you work everything in terms of the radius. So let's figure out the radius. Well, the diameter, if you look at it, is twice the radius. Radius is 1/2 of the diameter. That means the radius is e over 2. So in this case, this would be c over 2r. So using this, I'm going to tell you the formula for the circumference. So multiply both sides by 2r. So basically the circumference is 2 pi radius. Okay. The area of the circle is pi radius squared. Now you know the formulas. Let's use these to figure out some circle properties. If I ask you to find the circumference and area if the radius is, say, 6. Okay. So for the circumference, the formula is 2 times pi times r. And I'm going to leave the pi as pi for the now. So that means 2 times radius, 2 times 6. Pi. For the area, it's the same thing. Pi times radius squared. 6 squares, that's 36. So 36 pi. Okay. So what do you do if you have an area like this? I need you to find the area that's shaded. everything but the triangle. Given the diameter is 12 yards, and then we use the pi to be 3.14. So instead of using pi, I'm going to use 3.14. Unfortunately, if you look at the list of the formulas, you will not see a formula that calculates exactly this area, shaded area. You only see the formulas for the circle and then the triangle. So I'm going to break this picture into two pieces. So this is equivalent to saying, find the area of the circle minus the rectangle, sorry, the triangle. So if I find the area of the circle and subtract the area of the triangle, I get this shaded area. So if you get any kind of area that you don't see the formula for, basically the key is to break it down to pieces you recognize, circle and then the triangle. So the area of the circle is pi r squared. We're going to use 3.14 for the pi. So what's the radius? Well, the diameter is 12. The radius is half of that. That should be 6. So my calculation would be 3.14 times 6 squared. If I type that in to the calculator, 3.14 times 6 squared, you get 113.04. The area for the triangle is 1/2 base times the height. Oops, little b. This is the base here, and the height is this. So for the triangle, wherever you see this little square, that's the height. So the half, what's the base? So if you look at this line here, it's this line. If you look at it, that's the same as the diameter. So 12. What's the height? Well, the height would be here. If you look at it, it's the same as the radius. So radius 6. So type in the 6. So this would be 36. So if I do 113.04 minus 36, I get 77.04 yards squared. Okay. So that's how you do a problem like this where you're asked to find the shaded area. Alrighty, so let's do a few more examples. Cylinder, another common piece. So the cylinder looks like this. Basically a can of beans or something like that. Find the area and then the volume of the cylinder. How do you do that? Well, if you're asked to ever find the area and then the volume, I can tell you that the volume is a lot easier. So let's do the volume first. So if you look up the formula for the cylinder, the volume is pi radius squared times the height, h. Okay. So the problem says the radius is 10 feet, the height is 20. It doesn't say to use 3.14 for the pi, so I'm going to use pi as pi and not use the substitution 3.14. So I'm going to leave the pi as pi. So if that's the case, pi 10 squared times 20. Okay. 10 squared times 20, if you do the math, you get 2000 pi, because we're leaving the pi as pi. And the unit for the volume is going to be cubed. And then the unit for the length is feet, so this would be feet cubed. So make sure you got to put the 3 there for cubed. Now the area. Before we do the area, I'm going to deconstruct this to show you what the area looks like. Oh, by the way, when I say the area, it means the surface area, the total surface area. So the top, the bottom, and then the side. So not just a visible area, but the whole thing. So if I break this down, it looks like this. The top circle, the bottom is the same, so these two are the same. And if you break down the side, it'd be a rectangle. If you're skeptical, you can just break down a Coke can or something and it will look like this. Okay. Well, let's say you trust me on this and then the picture looks like this. So what I have to do is find the circle, double it because they're the same, and add that to the square, or the rectangle, here the rectangle. So let's do the circle first, which is pi r squared. We already know the radius to be 10. So this would be 100 pi. 100 pi, 100 pi. So for the area for the circles, it would be 200 pi. Okay. The area for the rectangle is length times the width. This is considered length. This is width or the height. We already know what the height or the width is. That's 20 feet. The question is, what's the length? Okay. Let me do a little demonstration. So if you imagine the Coke can, open it up, the whole circle, it's touching the top of this rectangle, so like this, and you kind of open it up. So the length here is the same as the circumference of the circle. So I need to figure out this length by figuring the circumference of this circle. Okay. If you mean the circumference of the circle is 2 pi r, so 2 times pi times 10, 20 pi. Okay, so that's the circumference. The width is 20. So this will be 20 pi times the width 20, 400 pi. Not quite done yet because that was just the side. So be sure to add top rectangle and the bottom circle, which we had it to be here. So 400 pi plus 200 pi is going to be 600 pi. And what's the unit for this? Feet. And we're doing the area, which is 2-dimensional. So this would be feet squared. Be sure to put the units down there too. Okay. That's the cylinder. Let's do a box now. Okay. It's a box. So say it's a box that looks like this. And typical UPS box, that's going to be 18 inches, 13 by 3 inches. Okay. Again, find the volume and find the area. The volume for the box is length times width times the height. This is considered length, that's width, and then the height. So easy. 18, 13, 3. If you do the math, you get 702 inch cubed. Okay, so that's the volume. The area will be easy, and I'll leave it for you to figure this out, is that there's a front face, which is the same as the back face, left face, which is the same as the right face, top and the bottom. If you look at it, it's a rectangle. So basically, you gotta figure out 6 faces, all rectangles, using the formula length times width. Sphere, or same thing as the ball, that's the name for ball, has unique formula. For the volume, it is 4/3 pi, radius is 1/3. Okay. So let's say you have a sphere, and the radius is 6 inches, and I need you to find the volume. Well, 4 divided by 3, leave the pi as pi, and then 6 to the 3 power. So to do this, if you have a TI-30 calculator, type in 4 ABC 3 times, I'm going to leave out the pi for the time being. I'm just going to leave it out and stick it back in later. 6 to the power of 3 equal sign. So if you do this 4ABC times 3, 4ABC 3 times 6 to the 3rd power, punch all that in, you get 288. That means the volume is 288 pi inch cubed. So that's how you get the volume for the sphere or the ball. Basically, all you need to know is the radius in order to figure out the volume for the sphere. Kind of neat. All right. So one last thing is similar triangles. Similar means that the two shapes that are the same size or same shapes, but different sizes. So if you see similar triangles, that means two triangles have the same exact shape, but one is bigger than the other or smaller. Okay. And the difference between those two be what we call the scaling factor. So let me show you an example. Here's an example. Let's say you place a mirror here, and you're 5 feet tall, and then you look it down. Point out like let's say some kind of light source, and it bounces back and touches the top of the tip here. Tip of the wall, say. Okay. And you're standing 8 feet away from the mirror, and then you know the wall is 24 feet away from the wall itself. The mirror is 24 feet away from the wall itself. Using the properties of similar triangles, find the height. Okay. So to find the height using similar triangles, you have to find And you can find any scaling factor between any corresponding size, corresponding meaning the same part of it. So in this case, the bottom feet here, these would be the corresponding sides. Not here and here or here and here, but these two because they're at the bottom. So what's the scaling factor between these two? So let's say you could do either way, 24 divided by 8. So in this case, the scaling factor is 3. That means this triangle is 3 times bigger as this. So this feet here, this light here is 3 times bigger as this one right here. So that means the corresponding sides here, this has to be 3 times as great as this. Okay? So that means, what's the height? Well, the height will be 5 times 3, or 15 feet. So the wall is 15 feet high. So that's a quick overview of how to do geometry questions. If you have any questions, look at the formula sheet and you can find any information there.